We've got more post-spring hot takes. Mitch has a pretty spicy one about the new SEC member Oklahoma Sooners. With that, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, guys, listen, don't call me the stockbroker, but if you have followed some of my advice over which teams to invest in, which teams maybe to bet against, maybe fade, play some put options, you are in the money by a healthy amount. Right, last year we recorded record record profits on Knowles Coin, and that wasn't just a 2023 bet. Honestly, that was a pre-show bet back years ago to when Mike Norvell took over. I was just buying up all these futures, all the penny stock that nobody wanted after he lost Travis Hunter on signing day. Nobody thought FSU would be contending for the playoff, but I was buying up all that stock, and we made a healthy profit last year when we sold that ahead of the playoff committee scandal. I would again like to call for a Senate hearing, some sort of investigative committee. I'd like to crack open the finances of the playoff committee last year. I just feel like there's some insider trading going on. So I'll continue to plant the flag for FSU. But last year, in our previews, we told you that Oklahoma was going to be a contender for the Big 12 title, and they were right there. Honestly, they're a really strange, crazy, hectic, historic loss to Oklahoma State away from making the Big 12 championship game and giving us the rematch that we really wanted, which was Oklahoma and Texas. But Oklahoma last year had a very successful season. Now they transition though into the Southeastern Conference. And if you look north of the Red River, there's a lot of gusto there. I think initially when they made the transfer over, maybe some hesitancy. The message boards had a fun time with that. But overall, I think the tenor of Oklahoma football post spring practice is that they're going to be just fine. That they've got their quarterback. That the transfer portal has yes taken away, but it's also given them some options, and that defense is largely intact. I would sell any Oklahoma stock that you own right now. If you look at the Vegas odds, whichever sports book you choose to look at, the over under for the Oklahoma Sooners is about 7.5. So Vegas right there is telling you pump the brakes on any Boomer Sooner optimism, because you look at the Oklahoma schedule, and it starts out relatively friendly. We don't know what Tulane is going to be. Sans Willie Fritz. Actually, we get to see Willie Fritz coaching University of Houston in week 2, but it's Temple, Houston, Tulane. Then they get Tennessee in their SEC opener. The balls come to town. It's going to be Nico's world. Are we just living in it, or can the Sooners make a first-year starter uncomfortable as he makes a true road start for the first time in his career? We'll see. At Auburn, then they play Texas. Then they've got this gauntlet that's only broken up by the Maine Black Bears, who, all respect to Maine, I don't think they're going to muster much of a challenge in Norman. But you've got South Carolina at Ole Miss, Maine at Missouri, and then you get the off week before Alabama and LSU. Now, I look at that schedule, guys, and I'm thinking to myself, first year starting quarterback. I'm thinking to myself, an entirely new running back core, a somewhat intact wide receiver crew, but an entirely new offensive line unit. And I'm talking all 5 starters from a year ago gone, transferred, graduated, what have you. That is not a recipe for success in the Southeastern Conference. And as much as I respect Brent Venables for bouncing back a season ago, I am not bullish on the Oklahoma Sooners heading into 2024. So I'd say right now, if you are an owner in the Boomer Sooner ETF, maybe we sell. Maybe we trim that position a little bit. Look to buy at the end of the year when I'm sure plenty of folks are going to be jumping off that wagon. You can buy low like we did with Oklahoma.
I am with you. And I think it's because the SEC just did the Sooners absolutely dirty in the
Horrendous,
schedule release.
horrendous schedule.
They handed Texas, by all accounts, for an SEC schedule, Texas got off very easy. They really don't play any of the projected top teams other than Georgia, and they get Georgia at home. Oklahoma is just immediately being treated as the redheaded stepchild by this conference. Like that closing state, I'm just going to read it again. At Ole Miss, the home game with Maine, at Mizzou, bye week, Alabama, at LSU. Like,
Wee!
I know that Alabama and LSU have a lot of question marks this year. New coach replacing Saban, obviously, new quarterback in LSU, but that's brutal, man. Like, I don't know if there's a win after that main game.
Wow. Okay. I like that. Explain that. Expound.
Mizzou's good. Like, Mizzou is
They're very
really
good.
good. They have Connor Cook to Luther Burden connection that I don't think Oklahoma can match nor defend. LSU or Alabama and LSU, I think if they were catching them early, they'd have a better chance. But
Yeah.
I think Alabama will have. I think Kalen DeBoer will have it figured out at Alabama by then. They might not be a college football playoff caliber team or a top 4 caliber team, but I think they'll be better than what Oklahoma puts on the field. And I think LSU will have things figured out by then as well. They're typically under Brian Kelly have closed better than they start the year. So I think that's an awful time to get those two teams.
Well, I was about to say, I think you could legit make a case for 6-6 on Oklahoma's schedule, and have them that low. And I'm not trying to be mean or harsh to the Sooners or anything. I got some family that like the Sooners, but look, I mean, I don't think you can pick them to beat Tennessee in their first SEC game, even if it's at home, right? I don't think you can pick them to beat Tennessee right now. You travel to Auburn, you don't just win on the plains. That's just not how that works. You get the
Auburn's got to be able
familiarity
to
with.
score, though.
No, I'm just saying Auburn's not very good, but you don't just win, right? And Auburn will show up. It'll be early enough in the season. Auburn's always feisty at the beginning, even the last couple of years, and they haven't been very good. They always show up at the beginning of the year and give you some hell. So that's always something you can count on with them. But I mean, look, like right now, if I was just counting losses, I'd say Tennessee's a loss, Texas is a loss, Ole Miss is a loss, Missouri's a loss, Bama's a loss, LSU's a loss. That's 6 losses right there. And that tells me that you have to then go perfect against teams like South Carolina and Auburn, which, they're not maybe fantastic teams, but you don't just roll over them the same way that you could have in the Big 12 when you're, going up to visit an old, Kansas team before they got good, or, finding a Baylor in the last couple of years to roll over, so it's not just this off week, right? It's not like you get some reprieve. And I think that's something that both Texas and Oklahoma are going to figure out. Now, Texas gets it a lot easier, kind of like you were saying, Trey. Like they get a lot easier schedule, but it's not like there's no grind in the SEC, and it's definitely not the same thing as the Big 12. So if they don't come to play every single week, they're going to be in trouble. And the other big factor too is just momentum, right? Momentum in the season can kill a season, right? If Oklahoma's, fighting for bowl eligibility going into the last couple of games against Missouri, Bama, and LSU, that's not going to be enough motivation to get them over the hump, right? They're not going to be thrilled to roll out of bed and go play in Columbia, Missouri, right? That's not going to be a fun time for anybody on that Sooner team, right? They're not going to be feeling as good as they have in the past couple of years, and they've been able to kind of sleepwalk to 10 wins. And so, I'm nervous about their beginning schedule. They certainly didn't get any favors. I mean, they're missing Georgia in terms of the top probably half of the conference on the schedule this year. That's about the only team they're missing from what will probably end up being that top half of the conference. And so, look, not fun times for Oklahoma. Like you were saying, Mitch, like you can sell right now and you can buy it up at the end of the season once the transfer window opens and they maybe start to make something out of it.
I want to go back to something you said, Garrett, because judging by the fan bases online that I've seen, neither Texas nor Oklahoma is really taking into account this the lack of talent disparity that they're about to run into, because they got to enjoy for the past 10 to 15 years just running rampant over a talent deprived Big 12. And it was a shock anytime that either of those two lost because they were so much more talented than every team on their conference schedule. Oklahoma and Texas are still very talented, but that drop off between them and the week in, week out opponents, it's going to be eye opening for those teams. And I don't know that either fan base is really ready for that. And I think that they're a little overconfident, especially those down in Austin. I know that they got a big favor in the SEC schedule, but even if it's not this year, maybe it's next year when the home road games flip, or after that as the schedule starts to, even out. I just don't know that either of those fan bases are really ready to appreciate the lack of talent disparity.
Plus 520 for Oklahoma to make the college football playoff currently on FanDuel. It is plus 7,000 for them to win the national championship. So, not terrible odds to make
Wouldn't touch it.
to make the playoff, but it does feel like a little bit of a sucker bet, right? You do need some luck, and you need some good bounces, and it's impossible to project that looking at this schedule. So
Do you have
again,
that pulled up right now, Mitch?
have their schedule or the odds?
No, the playoff odds. Do you have that
Yeah.
pulled up?
I do.
What is Tennessee, just out of curiosity? Like, I'm looking at that and as maybe like the easiest of those big games on their schedule. Like, maybe that's the one they can steal.
Mm-hmm.
Plus 172.
And that's a huge discrepancy. I know that that's taking into account schedules. I'm sure Tennessee gets to play Vanderbilt as an in-state rival and all kinds of stuff, but that's the story to me right there. I would say Tennessee is the most likely win out of those that we listed for Oklahoma, and plus 560 to plus 170 is a huge jump.
Yep.
It's a big old drop off. If you're wondering what Missouri is, little old Missouri, they're 184 plus 184. So a lot of SEC teams packed tightly together around that plus 200 mark. Oklahoma nowhere near that. So fade the Sooners this year. Don't worry, you can buy plenty of stock in them at the middle of this season when everyone's calling for Brent Venables to be fired. That's when you buy the OU stock and you pay it off in the year or two down the line.
Gracious, how about that?